Briagolong's always been known as quite a creative town. We moved here 20 years ago because it was such an amazing community, and it's really diverse. It's got farmers, it's got people who've been here for generations and generations, it's got a lot of school teachers, a lot of artists, a lot of musicians. There was a big movement in the 60s and 70s and 80s and beyond in owner building, so there's a really strong owner-builder movement. And it's just a beautiful, diverse, tolerant, creative, inclusive community. At the moment, it seems like there's another upswelling of creativity happening. So, we've opened up here, and a month later, next door has opened up as a workshop for artists every day. So that's great. Across the road, Maxine Salvatore's opened up a workshop. We've got open studios going in Briagolong and Stratford and Munro and Fernbank now that have like 16, 17 artists happening. Freestone Press has been doing amazing work, cultivating and nurturing the printmaking community, and it's really exciting to be part of that. Littlemilligan is a shop that my husband Colin Little and I have set up, and everything in here Colin and I make. So he does metalwork and woodwork, and I do painting and printmaking, and we design together and just really make whatever we feel like making. So furniture and sculptures and paintings.
We've made everything from little wooden bowls to large pieces of furniture to big signs, sculpture. We did some work for Vic Roads and did a roadside sculpture, and a lot of our work is bespoke. People come in and say, I'd like some gates. Family came back from Ireland where they'd seen their ancestral graveyard, and they loved the gates at the graveyard, so they brought pictures back to Australia and they brought them to me and said, look, can you make some gates for our driveway that look a bit like this,
I started off a while ago making some black cockatoos, yellow-tailed black cockatoos, because they're my favourite birds. And now I've branched out into white cockatoos. I draw them up on Illustrator on the computer, send that to a laser cutter, they cut it out, send back the blanks. They're made out of metal. Then Cole makes attachments to the back so that they can be hung, and then we send them off to a powder coater and they powder coat them, then they come back and I paint them, and then we put them on the wall. They're a bit of a play on the old 3 ducks on the wall, but it's 3 cockies on the wall, or 28 cockies on the wall if you so desire.
When I was 15, I left school, did an apprenticeship in boiler making and structural steel fabrication, and worked building bridges and big structures. I travelled and I worked in the oil industry, and then I came back to Melbourne and I worked in the Williamstown shipyards building ships, and I eventually went to a school called the Melbourne School of Woodcraft in Fitzroy. That was in the late 80s, early 90s, and learnt traditional hand skills, making furniture, working with wood, and learning about timber's properties and how to dry it and how to cut it, how to turn it on a lathe and what have you. And so I ended up with woodwork skills. It sort of led me into the arts in a way, surrounded by people who were like architects and slightly arty woodworkers. And that led me back to metalwork, using my skills with metalwork in a more artistic fashion. So then the natural flow from there was to start forging steel. The blacksmith of old forms steel shapes out of flat stock, and you turn it into a curved shape, heating it and bending it and so on. Over the course of my training and my working life, I've had access to all sorts of machinery and tools, so I know what's possible, I know what's out there. So recently I bought a big old set of 3-phase rollers that can roll like 1-inch thick steel, and it could roll that into a big tank. I have a pneumatic power hammer that's like from 1908. It came from England. The brand name's All Days and Onions, 1.5 hundredweight hammer. And effectively for the forging work, having the power hammer there is a bit like having a giant with a giant sledgehammer hitting the steel for you. I looked at a brand new bandsaw. I found this second-hand bandsaw for the same money, and it's 10 times the bandsaw I could have bought brand new for the same amount of money, So I tend to scour the internet and eBay and all those places looking for second-hand machinery rather than going to the shop and buying a new piece of machinery. I have inherited from Deb's father lots of tools and equipment, and he used to make model steam engines and things like that. And so his measuring tools and vernier gauges and so on, some of those I'm sure would be 100 years old easily.
It is a bit of a challenge working together and designing together, but it's also really stimulating. We will absolutely argue with each other and get frustrated with each other, but we'll keep working through it and end up with something that we both love. I studied graphic design. I actually meant to study fine art, but I got sidelined and did graphic design instead. So yeah, there are also the paintings and the prints, but there's also the furniture. And Cole just loves making furniture, and Cole's really great at thinking in 3 dimensions, and I'm not. I'm better at thinking in 2 dimensions, so he gets extraordinarily frustrated with me when we're trying to design in the round because I'm not that great at it. But by the same token, I have this really refined sense of design, and I can get really frustrated when he doesn't realise why it needs to be 1 millimetre to the left.
I always consider Deb to be the artist. After 30 odd years of being together as a partnership in life, some of Deb's artistic sensibilities have rubbed off on me, perhaps. You've got to imagine that when Deb met me, I was just a redneck boilermaker from West Heidelberg, and Deb was a graphic artist in Paran. So I'd go and pick her up from work on a Friday night. I'd just come from work, and there'd be all these people with groovy haircuts back in the 80s, and I wasn't quite sure about what I'd let myself in for. I couldn't be happier about it now, obviously. But we do have a fairly healthy debate over the design process mostly, and sometimes other things in life, of course. You know, we brought 2 boys up, and we had differences of opinion there. I would like to think that we don't need to be in Brunswick Street in Fitzroy or Chapel Street in Paran in order to have a shop that is selling a very high quality work and would eventually gain some sort of notoriety, hopefully, through its quality. And through that, hopefully, Briagolong would be the better for it.
It's a huge amount of work, and it's a great big jump and a leap of faith. But when you get there, you are in complete control. And like, I've been an artist all my life, and I've produced artwork all my life, and this is just taking it another step. And it's like, there's no time to waste. Just get out there and do it. And that's really what Colin and I are doing. We just want to do it, and so we're doing it.